Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, part of the Paramount Podcast Network. I am Mike Casaza from, believe it or not, the replay booth at Acrisure Stadium. That was the site of a lot of action tonight. It's the site of the Rapid Reaction Podcast here as I welcome in Chris Anderson, who's in the replay booth in Richmond, Virginia. Chris, a long time coming for this game, a long time to play this game. It fittingly went down to the very end, dramatic second half, lots of moments, lots of decisions, lots of performances. This was something that was missing from our lives for quite some time. It did a pretty good job filling in the vacancy with so much to talk about, which is why we're here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every time we do these and we talk about these podcasts, and I was doing the previews, I get asked, what does this mean? And for West Virginia to play Pitt, and I said, you don't understand. Like, I think when West Virginia plays Maryland, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Penn State, win or lose, it means so much more to the fans than any game versus Texas or Oklahoma, no matter how big those programs are. And you could tell tonight, you can tell by the post game reaction has been understandably intense. But I guess that's why you and I are here, to kind of try to make sense of it all and discuss what happened, discuss what went wrong, what went right, maybe try to, cheer a couple people up, piss a couple people off. Who knows?
That's what we do.
That's what I hear.
Let's start with the obvious here. I mean, this is something that we've joked about for a long time and wondered how it was going to go. We knew it was going to pop up in a big situation, but they got a punter.
Did they?
I think so. Because Oliver Straw did so well that they decided to send him out there on fourth and 6 late in the game. And that's where we're going to begin. Brown wanted to joke that he hadn't picked out a punter when he knew everybody was waiting for a decision on the quarterback 2 weeks ago. Tonight, he came in knowing that he was going to get asked in the post-game news conference about the decision to punt on what was 4th and 6 after they took a delay game penalty on 4th and 1. And it was about 4th and, half a yard maybe here. People have said inches. I guess that's accurate because even a yard is 36 inches. But yeah, hindsight is always going to be your enemy or your ally, and it certainly was on the wrong side of Neil Brown's fence today, because even with the good punt, his defense, which maybe didn't hint at this, gave up a long touchdown drive, and then the defense for Pitt scores the game-winning touchdown. Just a significant swing for the game. I don't want to project too much, but if things don't go right immediately for this team, I think you would circle the decision not to be a little bit more brave, to try to get a yard when you believe you have an offensive line that's bigger and better than it was before, and you have a 240-pound running back who Pitt did not want to tackle. Let's have it out, Chris. Good decision, bad decision. He says good. I can see the logic. I can certainly argue with it too.
I thought it was a bad decision in the moment. This is not, revisionist history here. Hated it. I'm always, just like I'm always on the side of, I'm not sure that's targeting. I am always on the side of going for it when it's 4th and less than 1 yard. I think when Neil first said it during the post-game press conference, he said 4th and a foot, and then later said 4th and 3/4 of a yard, so a little over 2 feet. But regardless, less than a yard to go to the first down marker. At that point, West Virginia was averaging over 8 yards per carry in the fourth quarter in this game. Obviously some of that's boosted by C.J. Donaldson, but when you have a 6'2", 240-pound running back and you need to get a few inches, let him get them. I think when Neil Brown was talking, he mentioned, looking back at how historically Pitt stops the run. And to be kind of blunt, who gives a what about what they did historically? It matters what they're doing in this game, what they're doing now. And right now in this game, and I'm pulling this up, this is from the stat broadcast with the media stats here. Power rushing, which is, according to this definition, rushes with 2 or less yards to go that converted for a first down or touchdown, meaning 3rd and 2 or whatever, 3rd 1, less than one. West Virginia was 4 for 4 in that stat. Runs stuffed percentage, rushes that are stopped for no gain or a loss. West Virginia, Pitt did that to West Virginia 3 times all game, less than 10%. It was 9% of their rushing attempts were no gain or negative yards. Does that mean there's a 91% chance of conversion? I don't know about that, but there was nothing that had indicated that Pitt was going to stop West Virginia from getting that less than 1 yard in this game tonight.
Point out that West Virginia does not have a fullback on this roster. Like, nobody who can stand in front of the halfback. And I'm not sure how many times it'll come up, but here we are in the first game where maybe you just needed someone like a sniffer who could just get in there and blow somebody away at the line of scrimmage. I don't know. Would that cure the problem tonight? Would they go for it if they had somebody? I don't know, maybe not. That's really nitpicking. I'm nodding my head at everything you just said. I will say this. In the moment, it seemed like a bad idea to me to kick it away and to kind of say, I don't think that you could drive the field at home against our defense, because I'd seen West Virginia's defense really. I know that they had 2 good drives before, but I'd seen some of the tackling issues and the coverage issues, and I was curious. Like, there was time to do something there, and I figured 1 possession. I didn't think it'd be 2, and they got down there really quick. And West Virginia's defense didn't even force a 3rd down, and that's problematic too. And then right to the very end, some of the issues that we had talked about, their coverage, sure, but their tackling in that back end was a concern in camp. It just was. A lot of the exploits we'd heard about offensive players also came from maybe the defense wasn't great pursuit and getting people on the ground. And that's certainly came to fruition several times, but on that final touchdown by their running back, I can definitely get behind Brown's explanation of, if there are 3 minutes left instead of 6, sure, but 6, even if they score, you have time. And guess what? They did. We can get to what happened on the other side of that coin in a minute, but honestly, they're in the position of having to go, 50 yards to kick a field goal and win the game. And it did kind of work out that way for them too. So I can defend his situation. But when I see a team and a program and a coach that's trying to turn it around and have an attitude and say, hey, we have a quarterback, we have an offense finally, you'd like to think you can get a foot, 2 feet, 3/4 of a yard in a situation like that, where the rivalry is such that everybody should have a little bit extra. You've worked all summer running Law School Hill. You've lifted weights. You've done sprints. You've flipped tires, heat, rain, whatever. It comes down to moments like that. And I think to not give the players a chance, it mattered tonight. How much will it matter in the future? How much baggage at this, do they carry around them for the time being and for the immediate future? I don't know. We'll see. But you can really whittle it down to that. But we forget the punt was good. The defense had been hot. They're supposed to go, 98 yards or 92 yards, I think, and they did. And West Virginia was complicit with a penalty and some poor tackling too, but it was just the worst case. Like when you do punt that ball, you're not assuming any of that stuff's going to happen, and maybe you should protect against that. But I think if you say I'm going to go for it because my defense isn't good, they might not force a 3rd down. They might get a targeting. They might, miss a bunch of tackles on one play. That's not a good look for your faith in your defense either. But I don't know. It really looms large right now, and I think it's impossible not to side with the part of the courtroom that says, hey, you should have gone for it right now too. It comes back to this though. Unfortunately for Bryce Ford-Wheaton, has a great game, really and truly, I would say the best game of his career. And I'm trying to think of a receiver since Kevin White who played as well as he had, and worst possible outcome for him. Runs a really simple route, and the ball just goes through his hands. MJ Devonshire catches it, zips through the defense. Good thing that West Virginia did all those crossover drills. They teach offensive linemen and receivers how to tackle. He was right through a whole bunch of white and blue jerseys and into the end zone to win the game. What a chaotic and almost fitting for the rivalry swing of events there.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean, that was, and we'll see it tomorrow when I put together my usual, plays to change the game thing, where the game cast and the win probability. I believe right before that play, West Virginia, even at a tie game, was here we are. Yeah, they were about 60% favorite to win still. Obviously, as they're moving down, because I think if he catches that, that probability probably jumps up to 80% or more, because West Virginia is in Pitt territory, 1st and 10. About 3 minutes left on the clock, 2 minutes left on the clock, 3 minutes left on the clock, and you're basically just running the ball to run out the clock and leave yourself a shot at a field goal and nothing more. And instead, obviously, what happened. And that swung it from West Virginia 60% to Pitt 90.3% chance of winning at that point in the game. So that was, I mean, you don't need a win probability chart to tell you that was a big play. But I'm with you. I had a whole thing written up about how we're all going to focus on C.J. Donaldson when Bryce Ford Wheaton was the reason that West Virginia was in that game. He was the reason that they were in it, because he not only had the 2 touchdowns, and I'm glad Neil Brown stuck up for him in the post-game press conference. I'm glad, not glad that he kind of like went after whoever it was that asked the question, but was really firm about it. That Ford Wheaton had played his rear end off. I'm trying to not use the words that potty mouth Neil Brown used, but he defended him, and he was right. 2 touchdowns. That play, on the punt return or punt defense, punt coverage unit with the big tackle, and then of course the first down towards the end of the second quarter. I talked about that. I had something written out, and where I said that play where JT Daniels drops back, gets his arm hit, ball just floats in the air. It's an obvious pick, but Bryce Ford Wheaton just says no. This is mine, and goes up high points. It comes down with it. West Virginia ends up going down tying the game. If he doesn't get that gets picked. Pitt goes up 2 scores, and we're sitting here discussing yet again end of first half hijinks, I think is how you put it. Terrible clock management. Second and 16, and they running a run play to the short side, going out of bounds to stop the clock for Pitt. And then, getting JT Daniels lit up on third down. And I'm, that just sends a cascading effect of that game's gone, the drive's gone, the game's gone. Your season's off to a terrible off on a terrible start. And man, the one guy who kept West Virginia in it, Bryce Ford Wheaton, until he didn't, of course.
It's unfortunate. I mean, it's an interception for Daniels. It's a drop, I guess, for Wheaton too, but he played great. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people are going to remember that because of the rivalry and what happened on the other end of it. And they lost the game. I mean, that's the play that essentially lost in the game. And yet they're darn close to winning it, or at least tying it, because Daniels steps in and throws a seed in between 2 safeties to a sinking receiver on the goal line. Neil Brown fired up about that. I didn't think that was a catch. I was surprised they called it a catch in the field, but I think referees will do that. They'll defer to the replay and just say, I don't know. It looks like he caught it. Hard to overturn, I think, but also I could also see them saying this doesn't look like the grass is between or his hands between the ball and the grass. The rules are murky on things like that. There were things tonight that I hadn't heard adjudicated in a while. There were new rules tonight that were I forgotten were on the books too. But I mean, really close. I mean, really, really close. And West Virginia did a lot of things well and didn't do things well here. But I guess we can get to some positive stuff here too instead of negatives. We can weave in some negatives. But look, they have some offense now. They clearly do. They have a running game that they maybe were not sure about. I don't know how transferable C.J. Donaldson's success is. I think people are going to probably pack the middle on zone reads when they see him get in there in the future. Kansas probably will take note of that, but they did seem to wear Pitt down, and nobody wanted to tackle Donaldson. And when Donaldson gets 39 and Mathis gets 29 on one drive and Pitt's heaving a little bit, that running game was starting to work. And I don't know how much of that was the offensive line, but they were also playing in spite of their offensive line too. A lot of quick stuff in the passing game, which we expected. For a while, passing them much more than they were running it, and the game slowed down. I think they felt like they had some ability to impose the running game. Daniels listen, this is a weird football thing that you hear a whole lot and you don't really get it. Arm talent. He's just got it. Like, he trusts it. He throws off weird angles, not just sidearm. I mean, like when he's rolling right, he can put the ball on the money. He did that in the clutch a few times today, including that one to O'Loughlin up the sideline. It was a beautiful ball and an absolutely key spot. And the fact that they connected that on it means, the quarterback and that tight end probably haven't practiced a whole lot together, but the quarterback knows to look for a receiver, and the receiver there, the tight end, knows to get north. And just if the quarterback's smart, the receiver's smart, it's going to happen. I really wonder how much those two have rehearsed it, but Daniels is smart enough to make that play. And more importantly, O'Loughlin says, wait a minute, a good quarterback is going to do this. And it was there. And that's just an anecdote, but like, you kind of see the potential of the passing game there too. I just think that there's a lot of weapons there too. And the trouble is that offensive line did take a hit tonight. They did start Jordan White at right guard and Doug Nestor at right tackle. White came out in the third quarter, I believe. Mm-hmm. Jaquay Hubbard came in to play tackle. Nestor moved back to right guard. They weren't great after that. I thought Hubbard played okay until he didn't when he had 2 penalties that kind of backed the offense up. But we'll see how long White's hurt. But I'll tell you what, White was tapping on his helmet to come out of the game before the play was over. So he knew he was in a bad spot there. He never came back in. Listen, we'd heard that their offensive line was problematic on the right side. We heard that their tight ends were not going to be as useful in the running and pass blocking. I think that to some extent that both those proved to be true. In particular, the tight end, they're going to have to work around that stuff too. But for the most part tonight, they were pretty good working with and working around their weaknesses.
Yeah, I think you see a lot of good, a lot of bad. You kind of mentioned most of it right there. The wide receiver thing. The biggest takeaway is, as you said, JT Daniels, arm talent, legit. I mean, you look at his line, 23 of 39 for 214. You're like, man, that's kind of crappy. It's not very good. But you know what? I think, and got Neil Brown said there was 2 drops. I mean, I think that number is closer to 5 or 6, but I feel like all of the drops and the ones that he put in positions, and maybe not, and a couple of these maybe not even are drops, but are just tough plays, but you're kind of hoping your guy can make those 50-50 catches, and they just didn't tonight, were deep ones. So I think there were probably 6 balls that Daniels threw that were perfect. Perfect. I'm thinking of one to Prather when he was going down the right side of the field and had to come back for it a little bit. Another one, I can't remember if that was Prather on the left-hand side too, just a few plays later. Just absolute darts from Daniels and just drops. And I think that really killed the deep passing game. And Neil mentioned it in the postgame that he felt like they would have gotten a few more hits on the deep passes. And I think the throws were there. It's just I don't think he got the help that he needed. And so that kind of hurt him a little bit on the stat line. But I think you're right. You look at this and you say, you got a quarterback. And that is the first and one thing you need the most. And West Virginia has it. And that's what's got to kind of lift you up for the rest of the season, is that you have JT Daniels at quarterback right now.
And they got to it early. Look, when Donaldson comes in and rips off that 44-yard run, that's not something the offense did last year. They did not get pop plays. And all of a sudden, you get down, it's 1st and goal, quick fade to Wheaton, and it's a touchdown. And back-to-back plays, you see 2 things the offense couldn't do before or couldn't do consistently, never mind that easily. And it happened a bunch. And that's probably extremely encouraging, I think, moving forward, too. It just wasn't enough tonight. But again, it's a pretty good defense they played. That defensive line did not quit. Just kind of relentless. That's the word I heard talking to some people was that it was a relentless group. And if it was quiet for times, it was not quiet at the end. 2 sacks in that last drive that really kind of got West Virginia uncomfortable and made them hurry things. Maybe they didn't want to there. So, yeah, that's going to happen. That's a good defense. And I think you mentioned this too. Maybe the best defensive line they see all year. And for that offensive line to start like that against an opponent like that and play okay, a lot of rushing yards, pretty good protection at times. The quarterback helped him out, but, not perfect. But I think if you're looking for perfect from the offensive line the first game, you were probably misled, I think. Another guy I want to shout out to, Tony Mathis. Good running, good receiving. Also recovered 2 fumbles that could have been turnovers, including one on the goal line and one just in the live course of play where no one saw was there. Heads up stuff for him. If he doesn't make those plays, people talk about Donaldson. If not for Donaldson doing what he did on offense and special teams, then they're not in the game. Sure, if Mathis doesn't recover those fumbles, they're in trouble too.
Yeah, I thought he had a nice day. I think it started a little slow. Again, a lot of the focus turned to Donaldson, but then he broke a couple good ones. Was able to make some guys miss, and that seems like a good combination, a good 1-2 punch there with Mathis and Donaldson. And I don't want to temper everybody's expectations about Donaldson. I don't want to take away what he did today because it was special. But that offensive line, go back and look at Donaldson's runs. At least, we had 7 runs, so 4 or 5 of them, and they were most of the big ones. Go back and look at the runs and tell me when the first defender is near him, because it was just a wide open lane. And what Donaldson did well was, hey, there's hole, run fast. And he just went north-south, upfield, gone. And that's what he does well. And it's hard to tackle him. But there needs to be some credit to that offensive line, because, I think they got tired. They got worn down on the pass blocking. And that started getting some pressure on Daniels as the game went along, especially. But I thought their run blocking was pretty darn good Looking at it here, yeah, sack adjusted rush yardage. Whoa, even better than I thought. Adjusted to, take away sacks from the rushing yardage, 7.1 yards per carry. 7.1. That's it's when is the last time a West Virginia team has averaged over 7 yards per carry, especially against a good defensive line?
Yeah, they gave people on that inside zone stuff with him, or the zone read stuff with Donaldson, and he did the rest once he got to that second level. But he was seeing, let's not give him too much credit. He was seeing holes that were impossible to miss, which is not against him. I mean, that was a good job by that right side of the line sometimes too that we're talking about. So, listen, that's a great thing for him and a good thing for the offense. I think that'll be fine. We'll see what happens with White defensively. Charles Wood's injury, that didn't look good. He was in a walking boot, left foot. It looked like for me on the sideline, and also. And McCormick had a tough day. A lot of chasing, whether in coverage or in pursuit. Didn't have great angles on some stuff, whether he was approaching a pass or a run play or a reception, yards after catch. He's also out for the first half of the next game against Kansas. They could be thin in that secondary against a quarterback in a passing game that might be better, and also some running backs that do seem like they get loose. That secondary could be tested there. Listen, we'll see. That's going to be some stuff to keep an eye on there. They played shorthanded tonight in that defensive line too. No Hammond Russell, no Jalen Thornton. Those are two guys I think you thought might play. Zaki Lawton too didn't play, didn't dress. It's three guys in that defensive line, and that defensive line still hung in there and played pretty well. Just some personnel stuff to kind of keep it going there. Let's wrap up with Donaldson. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they have here. I don't know if they know what they have, but I think they're going to have to find a way to make sure that he gets at least 7 catches or touches in a game. That shouldn't be a problem. But listen, the guy's on the kickoff return team. He's on the pump block team. They mentioned this kid's just a football player, and you could see it. Like, just this is a tight end, maybe a high school receiver who's playing running back and gashing a top. I don't know. This is definitely a top 20 defense in the country. The book could get out on him too, but that's a dynamic debut, and I'm sure people are going to say this. I wrote about him a couple of weeks ago that I just didn't see it. I'd heard a million things about how good he was, but I hadn't seen it. This is not my attempt to do this, but that drew some people out of the shadows to talk to me and said, no, trust me on this kid. And then he was dynamic in scrimmages, and just wait, because he's going to be good. And when you see him in the game, you're probably thinking that he's going to pass protect, or he's going to do something as a decoy. And maybe that's why receivers we're getting more attention. Maybe defensive backs are fanned out in the middle was so open, but he did exactly what he was supposed to do. They've got something there with him too. I didn't see it. I was assured that he had it, and he certainly had it tonight. This is an exciting thing for the offense. Again, they deployed him a little bit. They don't win this game. They don't get in this game without him tonight. I don't think it's a thing you can expect every game. But if you're the opponent, you got to be ready for this now too, and that's not something that was on the table before.
Yeah, that's why I was sort of trying to temper expectations here, because again, the offensive line in most of his rushes, which again were just a handful, they just knocked a hole big enough for a truck to go through. So it wasn't like he was showcasing some kind of great vision or wiggle or anything like that. I mean, he has some of it. He's got some vision, obviously, or they wouldn't put him back there. He's got some power. He can move. We saw him run over some people for that touchdown run. But teams are going to figure it out. Like you said, Kansas is going to take note. They're going to be jamming up the middle when he comes on the field. They're going to know what he wants to do and thinks he can do.
Daniel said he was switching passes to run because Donaldson was in the game and no one wanted to tackle him. That's your quarterback, your 5-star quarterback who likes to fling it. You say, no, I'm going to hand it to 12 instead too. And don't forget, he blocked a punt. By the way, Anthony Del Negro, just wiping out the protection so no one could stop Donaldson. And this is what he does. He's a special team stud, and he blocked like 5 or 6 kicks in a career. It's Stony Brook. He's a walk-on transfer here, and he makes a great play, and Donaldson ends up with the glory there. But that was a huge moment there too. It looked like you steal 7 points off of that, and that was something that could definitely swing a game. And it looked like it did too. Last thing for me, we can go, or if you have anything to add up to, a lot of the promise, I think, of having Daniels on the team is not the arm talent or the 5-star status, so that he can go and he can check plays line of scrimmage, but his leadership and the way that he has transitioned in the locker rooms. As a high school senior playing starting quarterback at USC, as a guy who transfers to Georgia and who keeps starting and battling a really popular backup quarterback for the starting job. And don't forget, last year when they went to the playoff, lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and people were saying they probably should start Daniels, right? So he's highly thought of. his post game tonight was the first time that I really put the pieces together. When you hear people talk about his leadership, his presence, his maturity, really complimentary of the team, saying that you can fix execution, but if a team doesn't have fight, you can't do that. And he sees a team that has fight, and they'll cure the execution problems. Had his back, had Bryce Ford Wheaton's back, was all about the pride he had for the team that he had just joined and how they performed out there tonight too. And I think that stood out too. He was happy with how he played. He sees a lot of promise in this team. They're 0-1. I think that he sees a much higher ceiling than a lot of doubters do right now too. And if that's good in the locker room, that should be good out in Mountaineer Field a week from Saturday.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing for fans to hear that, and to also take a step back and think about this for a second, because actually it's a question for you. I'll go ahead and ask myself as well, I suppose. But it's getting late. It's after midnight, almost 1 a.m. here. Does this game change your perception of West Virginia for the entire season? Because for me, it actually, I mean, everybody saw my predictions the other day. I said 8-4 and squeaking out a win over Pitt. I was this close to get off to the right foot here. I'm still not shying away from 8-4. I don't think it's unattainable. Like, am I crazy for thinking that?
I think where I saw flexibility with them was that this should be a mature team that has been through a lot of things. There are older players who've been around, and the new people they brought in are veterans, and that they can go into a place like, I don't know, Acrisure Stadium for a Thursday night game to start the season and not be wowed by the atmosphere. And by the way, the atmosphere was fantastic tonight too. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And I kind of saw that tonight, and I saw a team that couldn't get completely out of its way, but again was playing, a top 20 opponent, number 17 in the country, and a really flukish play by the player who's having like a game of his life kind of game. And if it doesn't go the wrong way, then things go the right way for West Virginia tonight. Is it as simple as one play? Maybe not. But I definitely see the potential that I saw for them before. And I think that what I had gotten myself talked into was the flexibility being they can win a game they shouldn't. They might lose a game they shouldn't. I don't know where tonight is. Should they have won this game and maybe they shouldn't have, or did they lose a game they shouldn't have? I'm not sure. But I don't think that the verdict is in this team. And I think that you'll see them more likely to steal games or win close competitive games than give them away. They're not going to see a lot of teams as good as Pitt the rest of the way. I think that's encouraging if you're trying to figure out if the glass is half full or empty.
So that was a very polite way of you telling me that I might be crazy. So thank you.
Or you might be right. I don't want to say it that easy, especially to you, right? But I think that you might be honest something there too. Again, like this is a team that could, fluctuate around 6-6, 7-5, but I think you see a ceiling that you can get your head above and win a game or two that you're not supposed to. But as you saw tonight, there's always the boogeyman that might be able to steal one from you when that has no business being taken out of your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this game, and I think we're already seeing it on the message board. We're seeing it on the social media and everything right now. It takes an emotional toll from fans, but I think what you actually saw on the field tonight might make some people feel like if you thought this team was going to be decent to good, you might still feel that way. Or you should still feel that way after that game, even no matter how much this is going to hurt right now.
Checked a lot of boxes that people wanted to see checked, especially in offense and relative to the quarterback position more so than anything else. This didn't check the box in the win column. That hurts the most. That matters most. But that's something that they will get to work on soon. Back in the field next Saturday at home against Kansas, first Big 12 game. We will be back in the earsports.com rotation, wrapping up this game, previewing the next game, talking again soon on the podcast. Until then, I'm Mike Casazza.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We'll talk to you later.